I'm not a geospatial expert. I'm not like the rest of the panelists today, but I do have some experience in providing and using geospatial data, so I think that's why Calestis asked me to be on the panel. So I want to talk a little bit about geospatial perspective. And what I mean by that is that perspective that acknowledges the importance of location-based data in providing the context for the big picture understanding of development. And just to put this picture in context, I think you probably recognize where that is, right? Does anybody not know where that is? So I think all the pictures, I'm pretty sure all the pictures I'm going to show you are pictures that I tweeted down from the space station or tweeted at some point, including this one. And my tweet, when I tweeted this down, is from space. Even Red Sox fans and Yankee fans are next door neighbors. And I had the opportunity, as we all know, back April 15th to retweet that and to add to it that from space all you can see is beauty. And this next picture I also retweeted. I didn't take it. This was taken the night of April 15th by Chris Hadfield on board the International Space Station. And again, one of the things I want to talk to you about, and the reason why I'm showing you this, is to kind of illustrate this sobering contradiction that we have when we see our planet from space. You know, on the one hand, we can clearly see the beauty of the planet we've been given. On the other hand, are the unfortunate realities of life on our beautiful planet. You know, those people don't have clean water to drink, enough food to eat, and then obviously we have an example here of violence. Looking at the geospatial perspective, you have to look at it in terms, in order to fully appreciate that, you have to look at it in terms of the orbital perspective. And what I mean by the orbital perspective is that perspective that acknowledges that each and every one of us is riding through the universe together on this spaceship that we call Earth, that we're all interconnected, that we're all in this together. And that geospatial data then must be understood in that context in order to take its place in the big picture of development, particularly. So I am on loan, actually, at the moment from NASA to USAID. I've been brought over to USAID to do two things. One is to stand up an applied research program for USAID, a DARPA for development, if you will. And the other one is to manage a collaboration, the construction of a collaboration platform that humanitarian organizations can use. It's called Unity Node. And both NASA and USAID put a really big emphasis on the provision, the use, and the visualization of location-based data. And USAID in particular wants to use this geospatial data to help make the aid that they provide, the services they provide, the development that they help, that they are catalysts for, to make that a lot more effective. And so one program that is a partnership between USAID and NASA is SEVERE. And SEVERE is an initiative that integrates satellite observations, ground-based data, and forecast models to monitor and forecast environmental changes and to improve the response to natural disasters, crisis management. It enables scientists, educators, project managers, and policy implementers to better respond to a range of issues, including disaster management, agricultural development, biodiversity conservation, and climate change. And the emphasis in SEVERE is placed on the availability of searchable and viewable Earth observations, measurements, animations, and analysis. The other thing that USAID has stood up, I think it was in 2011, they stood up the Geo Center, and it is housed within the Office of Science and Technology within USAID, but it's a multidisciplinary approach to geographic data. And it basically takes the mindset that different users have different needs, and it's important to design geographic data in such a way that you publish it once and you use it everywhere. And to do this, they're separating the data stores from the software and the platforms that are doing the data visualization. And just wanted to point out that, you know, it's one thing to be able to provide data. It's quite another thing to be able to provide data, specifically location-based data, in a way that's usable for the public or for anybody else that wants to use it. And that requires, at the moment, that requires a great deal of work. Some of the USAID's programs are making use of crowdsourcing platforms, and I'm going to talk about one example of crowdsourcing platforms in a second. There's also, oops, There's also a very well-funded program that is building a coalition of universities that are tackling challenges, development challenges, including the provision of geo-based data. So I just want to real briefly touch on evidence-based data. I know there's a big trend towards evidence-based development, evidence-based data. I know that there's a lot of debate around that issue. But I think it's, just to give you an example, I think it's really important from a measurement point of view. And I'm involved, outside of my role with the U.S. government, I'm involved with an organization I founded that provides clean water in the developing world. And we do that through a unique funding mechanism of producing carbon credits. So we get no grants, we get no charitable donations. We had a project in 2011 with a partner organization where we provided clean water to 4.5 million people in Kenya. We have a project right now for 3 million people in Rwanda. 30% of the country, the poorest 30%. And traditionally these type of projects to validate their impact are using surveys. And obviously surveys have some bias to it. But we took a subset of all of our systems that we installed and we instrumented them. We also designed very low-cost sensors that determined the quality of water, the flow rate, how much water goes through. We also have high-efficiency cook stoves. We're monitoring those. And so that provides a way for us to get real-time data. We know right now we get on the internet. We're in partnership with Portland State University for this to be able to pick the country that we're in, the location that we're in, exactly what's happening on the ground. And I think it's really changing the face of how development dollars are spent, because it's a way to target areas that are doing well, and it's a way to maybe bring light on areas that maybe aren't doing so well. So in GIS data, location, 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 I think it's very important, and this is again a good example of putting things into the right context. And I just wanted to point out one of the things that we're working on at USAID and in other organizations is this idea of collaboration and how to work together. Because I talked about that sobering contradiction we have between the beauty of our planet on one hand and life on our planet on the other. And the good news in that story is there are literally millions and millions of organizations around the world working to improve life on Earth. The bad news is, for the most part, these organizations are not engaged in a unified, coordinated effort. There's a great deal of duplication of effort, loss of efficiency, and loss of positive impact that those organizations could otherwise make if they were simply working together. And so one of the projects that I'm working on is UnityNode, and that is a project to try and basically it's a data sharing platform. We're trying to build an open source universal platform for collaboration that humanitarian organizations can use to work together towards their common goals. And it's a very, very exciting program, and in the interest of time, I'm not going to get into too much of it. But it's all in the geographical context is really important, because the data sharing platform that UnityNode is going to build is going to also share those type of geospatial type of data sets. So this is a picture that I took showing the beauty of the planet, but when you find out that this picture was actually taken over Afghanistan on a particular day where there was some fierce fighting going on just below that cloud level on that beautiful sunset, it kind of changes the context of the picture itself. So one thing, when I see these pictures, and one of the things that pops in my mind is that we do have a wonderful world, and that I believe that we live in a world where the possibilities are only limited by our imagination and our will to act. And there's a lot of projects that we're working on to try and communicate that message, try and communicate in an inspirational way. One of those projects is Fragile Oasis at fragileoasis.org. Again, Fragile Oasis makes use of geospatial data and highlighting projects around the world where people and organizations are trying to make a difference. This is the bottom line, though, of the effort is to use that orbital perspective, use that perspective we have of our planet to inspire people to go out and make a difference and make the world a better place. And the last thing I want to talk about is something called the International Space Apps Challenge, because we also are involved in a lot of mass collaboration type of activities. And this one is the largest mass collaboration ever attempted, ever accomplished. And We had 2 of these so far. The last one was just last weekend, actually the weekend before last. And it consisted of about 10,000 people spread out in 86 cities in 44 countries on all 7 continents, coming together to use space technology to solve challenges facing our planet. And a good portion of those were geospatial type of data. They were location-based services. You know, how can we use satellite data? How can we use climate data to indicate what types of crops to grow? You know, what are the forecasting models? How do we build handheld apps? So over the course of a weekend, 10,000 people collaborated across the globe and came up with about 80 different solutions, 80 different unique projects that really, I think, are going to make a big difference. And so just to keep this as short as possible, because we have a lot to go through on the panel, I'm just going to conclude with that. And do we have the time for a question or two, or not? Anybody have a question?
Could you just give 1 or 2 more sentences about the Unity node and the platform?
Sure, sure.
The goals for it?
Yeah, so the goal for it is to unify the various efforts to provide a platform for collaboration. So there are other organizations, there are other initiatives around the world that are trying to build tools that organizations can use to work together. So if you want to accomplish that as your goal, the first step would be to collaborate with those groups that are trying to do that. So what we're trying to do is not replace those efforts. We're trying to make each of those efforts much more effective, much more impactful than they would be otherwise by connecting them together. So the stage that we're in right now is we're building a coalition of stakeholders, and stakeholders are data providers, data users, and data aggregators, and we are basically bringing them together, and we're trying to build the basic framework of what that would look like. What type of data should we share? What's the format? What do we do if the format's incompatible? And we are going to, I think, kick this whole thing off with an International Space Apps Challenge-like event, where we have a hackathon, if you will, to basically take the Unity node problem, break it into unique, smaller challenges, and then present those as challenges for the global community to get us off the ground and to help us build that foundation.
Marcia?